freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
And guess what? You're back with Dave and Mecky's Shiny Set Out on freedomslips.com on the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net. So push the donate button or subscribe to the archives when it becomes subscribable again. But go to Patreon. By the way, Shiny Set Out also has a Patreon account, and you'll find that in YouTube videos in the bottom in the description. You can get yourself some great merchandise from the station's website. They're using Zazzle. So if you want to, say you choose a t-shirt with the design you want, you can actually go to customize and choose the product and change the product and then resize it for yourself. All of the proceeds go towards the station. And I really ask you to do that. Because if you like anything at all on this platform, on freedomslips.com, then it's really important that you do support the station. And I really appreciate that if you could, I think YouTube just got a whole bunch of my voice, but you didn't in the chat room. So apparently that's okay. It'll all catch up in a second. Don't worry. Now, I'm going to thank you for listening to Revolution Radio because it's an awesome station. There's so many different voices, so many different people, so many different backgrounds. Everyone has an opinion, and you can pick and choose and find the ones you want because they're actually pretty cool. Yes, yes, I know. They're reminding me in the chat room. And what's funny about it is it was just muted on Skype, but it was going live to YouTube. So I was just doing a station break stuff in the middle. No, you didn't miss anything. All right, we're halfway through show number 517. And when I say we, it's just me because Mecky is having to attend to some family issues at the moment, and he will be back next week. But Mecky would say 7, 10, and 500. Because you count backward, you count from left, right to left. All right. This show, this hour, not like the last hour because that was just like me prattling off some news. This hour is actually, I want to open the lines up and actually take a caller. But you've got to remember, hello, echo. You've got to remember that this is going to go on YouTube, not just be on the station. So I'd really prefer if you didn't get me cancelled and say anything that would. I'm happy to talk about anything you want. And if you don't want to come on air, you can just type it in the chat room and I'll happily talk about the topic. Because, funny this, when you get over 50, now it might occur locally with you at a younger age, though not me. I have reached the age in which I'll talk about any topic you like and I'll have an opinion on it that you may not like. So I'm happy to talk about a topic you like, but you may not like my opinion of it. Right? And I'm quite opinionated, but the age that I'm at means that I don't care. Kind of a little bit like Jeremy Clarkson. I don't know why. I started feeling like him when I got into a brand new car, and my mate, he bought a brand new car. And it's got some really cool tech. My goodness, it's got some great tech. You're driving along and as you're driving, if you're doing a speed limit, it doesn't matter. But it detects if you're going over the speed limit because it knows. And if you're going to change lanes, you put your blinker on and it'll change the dashboard to show you the rear vision camera instead of there being visible rear vision mirrors. It's really interesting what it does. It's super intuitive because it won't let you change lanes if there's someone there. It doesn't just beep. Which is really funny. And it has me concerned that we're so close to automated driving that a friend of mine during the week and we were talking about, how automated trains are driverless trains these days. There is absolutely no driver. The train pulls up exactly at the right spot, doesn't run a little long. It pulls up at the right spot, and there's doors on the train and then doors on the platforms that both open in unison, allowing you to step through onto the train. But there's a wall going down the platform, not the traditional open platform thing. The train can stop anywhere, and you find where the door is. You know where the door is going to be, so you're going to line up there. All right. Okay, I've got a question from the chat room, and this is from Comet. Comet asks, what is the general feeling in Australia about China and its plans for the future of your country or region? Okay, I'll answer that question, but then I'll add upon it. Interestingly, Australia has now, as a country, began to become concerned about the new wishes or decree that's come from China within itself, but been echoed across the world. And I'm using the words I've seen on the screen. And those words were, this decree was, China will be the dominant power militarily, economically, and I think there was another topic there or something as well that they mentioned. Okay, so you're going to be the dominant power militarily. Okay. Do I have to change what I do? Do I have to support you as a person? If the messaging right now is being controlled by the Facebook fact checkers and the Facebook filterers and the Twitter filterers who deplatform you if you go against the current WHO narrative, where Tedros was placed in the role as the head of the WHO by China because he was just a little tin pot country leader or politician before that, and they placed him in that, and now they've got all these controls, and it's their message. It's China's influence on Tedros that has now put him in a position where he's now dictating what the planet can talk about. What? But I don't live in the World Health Organization. I'm not an employee. I am in my own country. And yet I'll get deplatformed if I go against the narrative. And whenever control of the message is a thing, the leadership is weak because they're too afraid to confront truth. And if you can't laugh at yourself and you can't take criticism, guess what? You're living in an autocracy or a fascist government where you're dragged off for reprogramming. Oh, this one's a live one. They said 2 and 2 is 4. We've all taught, we just answer 5 to that question. That's a free thinking alert. Oh, just let the hooks do their work. That's a Simpsons gag. Now, this is of great concern. Now, China started buying up all parts of the world, islands, making what it initially appeared to be on the surface just alliances around the world for trade. Debt diplomacy here and there. Well, who hasn't done that, right? Pardon me. I haven't coughed in days. Now, the debt diplomacy rule is you provide a nation who can't afford it with infrastructure which they need to pay back, but the cost ends up so overwhelming that they can't make payments, and then you own it. That's great. So, and I imagine the neighbor down the street, you say, okay, you don't have a car, right? Look, I'll loan you the money for the car. All you have to do is pay me back. and but the car's going to be yours, right? You keep making the payments, the car's yours. You don't make the payments, I just come and take the car. It's mine now. I'll charge you for using it. Hang on a minute. When was that? Plus, I'm going to go into your house every once in a while and go to the pantry and just take stuff out of the pantry. That's the same as whatever the natural resource is in a country. So if they're an oil producer, then I'll just take some of the oil. Like it was in Brazil, I think. That is of great concern to Australia. We're resource rich. Like we have a lot of dirt we can just dig up and sell to people, and it comes in different flavors. You've got your bauxite, which is aluminium. You've got your yellow cake, which is for uranium. We've got so much good coal that we're sitting on like the world's best coal. It may not be, but we're up there, say top 5. It's better than I think the Malaysian coal, which is too dirty. I think it's got too much of a chemical in it. And it's really not good for pollution-wise. Ours is actually cleaner. But, right, certain states of Australia was selling some of their assets. Like we sold one of the Northern Territory, that's the northernmost port. There's a port there. We sold it to the Chinese, which is presumably one of the worst decisions that we'd ever made militarily. But it was when they were happy face and decided that it was a good thing for us to do that. And we were skint, so that means poor. So we decided to accept that deal from within the Northern Territory state. Victoria did the same thing. They sold one of their ports off. And we've been selling farms and selling land for cotton growth. We've diverted whole rivers for the growth of cotton. We've done so much to support these business deals, but we never saw the big picture as a country until very recently, when I think the hand was revealed, the motive was revealed, when we started to see other countries being absorbed into this compliance by debt diplomacy. Here we've realized militarily that our ports are now completely open and visible, and one of them is a military port. That's the Northern Territory one. The other one's a heavy trade port, which could have military refitting or what have you conducted there. Don't know specifically, but certainly trade. So if the port fees are too high, you just buy it, and then you have to pay the port fees. Then you make the money for the port fees from all the other vessels that appear. So it's quite an interesting diplomatic method that they're using. My concern is greater than that, though. The region is of great concern because at the moment the distance between, up until a couple of years ago, the distance between China and Australia militarily meant that their level of weaponry couldn't reach Australia, and that means we had a buffer. Should it get turned to sewage, right? Then what we've seen since is China buying up, or debt diplomacy, bankrupting countries, getting closer, and then moving in and making fishing ports and what have you, getting closer. And I think the last one was in the Solomon Islands, which is really close. That's within a military strike. So if you were to set up a base there, like China set up the bases in the 9-dash line South China Sea area, then and have perpetually made claims towards the ownership of that, which was denied in The Hague, by the way. The rest of the world didn't allow that decision. Sorry, the determination by China that they owned it, but rather because it was claimed as ownership by all of the other neighboring countries, that it wasn't given solely to China, and their claim that they own it was denied. But China hasn't honoured that decision by The Hague. Therefore, what we've seen from a world's perspective is this is an aggressor who is now preferring to be ignorant of the other country's livelihoods, the other country's perspectives, and isn't intending to be a peer. So when you play the diplomatic game, it's always for at least stalemate, right? Meaning you're only ever trying to become a peer. Once you've determined that you don't want to be a peer, that you want to be the leader, then you can just bluster into a room, spitting commands at everybody and shooting those that don't comply. Now, I think there was a person, I don't know, what was it, 1940 something, who decided that they weren't going to take the world's instructions but rather do something on their own to take as much land as they could from those who, well, for the most part, declined their offer of taking their country from them. Except there was one country that are full of rifle chuckers, right? Just give up. Don't try and fight them, and then wage a rebellion from within. I think we all know who it is. I don't have to say the words. So this concern of mine in the region is shared from Australia to the other countries, and now that's why we've made what's called the Quad. It's a group of countries that all share the same concerns, and it is all of economic, military, and diplomatic concerns. That what we're seeing here is the birth of a nation of people who are determined to take over the world. It's as simple as that. While they will never claim to have done anything by force, no, it's a soft takeover or a grey war. You go in and buy up as much as you can and then lend people money they can't pay it. Then the agreement suggested that they have to give it to you. It wasn't forceful. But if China decided they were going to take Taiwan, then the world, chip manufacturing would go down the toilet even more than it is now. At the moment, we're seeing something like 186 days to get a switch or a router or an access point from one of the, I won't say which brand, but one of the largest manufacturers in the world who supply to the US military. So it's not in the blacklist or the ban list. So the concern is that standing up a parallel chip manufacturing facility anywhere else on the planet to that standard is going to be an awful state of affairs, a rush job, and I think we're going to still get more of the primary components, not from like the silicon wafers and the quality, that we're going to see a huge reduction in that. So if China took over Taiwan, immediately we're now going to be completely at the beck and call of having to be forced to be friends with China regardless of their intention. I think this is what the Quad is attempting to negotiate or steer around, and it is of absolute tremendous concern where I live. While that isn't the exact messaging that we hear from our mainstream media, given that they're always painting everything a little bit more, brighter or nice light. What we've seen already with the sanctions and the trade slowdowns and our supply line issues, all caused by the slightest rhetoric from our country, even putting a hard light or a harsh light or slightly, you could say, defaming or shining a negative light on China, has caused these outcomes. So whether it was beef, it wasn't pork actually, but it was wine, all of our exports that we have going to China. I think that's been it's been harshly hit by sanctions and caused us some financial grief. But we did find including coal, we did find other buyers for that. So what we've actually done is now begun to widen our search for our coalition's needs and attempting to supply them instead of China. I think the game in the end would be on one side, if this was like a football match at a school where you were just playing skins and shirts because you don't have outfits to wear like uniforms, and the captain of the team got to pick from the group and it was alternate, right? I think on one side we would see pretty much a majority of the world's current powers in the top 5, 6, 7, 8, except for China. And on the other side, we would see Iran, North Korea, Russia, and China in that corner. If it was a WFC fight or something like that, that's what it would appear to be. All of the scenarios that I've seen that describe a conflict between China and the US, or China and Russia and the US, don't take into consideration the alliances and the number of folk in those countries with their military assets as well. So I think I love Petrov something or other. I watched this military scenario YouTube channel. It's pretty cool. What's really interesting is the games are occurring just like the German games in 1936, where it's the right before conflict. The first television broadcast was Hitler opening the games. I think there's if we didn't learn from the past, we're going to make a lot of mistakes this time around. But I think what we're seeing from the intel and what's classified and what's been made public, I think they've got a complete handle on what is currently going on. I think there's a big picture here, but are we downplaying the severity of it and the urgency of it from a governmental perspective in our collective countries? Are we saying, China's just not ready to do it yet, or they don't have the strength, but they would want to win, so they're going to build up their strength before they do it? Hence why we bought those submarines that aren't going to turn up for 8 years or greater, 18 years. Such a silly prospect to have signed something over that we couldn't possibly even obtain and still get the anger of our opponent, I suppose, in this race. So what is it that all these countries are putting together to be able to form an alliance large enough to even come close to countering the force should it be needed? I'm quite the American football fanboy. I wrote the first game ever in the whole world on a mainframe that could play two people playing the game at the same time, and it was American football. The first one was tic-tac-toe, and then I did American football. I even had to. There were so many things that I broke ground on that had never been done before, and I was actually nearly fired for doing it because they said this is. I won't name the company, but they said there's no future in computer games. Funny. And when was this? This was 1986. Hilarious. The only comparison to it was Leisure Suit Larry at the time. Anyway, so I was a coder back then. I'm kind of not the coder now. I don't really code. But IT, yeah, I still dabble in IT. I got some pretty cool tech at home, which I can even see, I can detect intruders up to 50 meters away. It's all good. But yes, axis of evil was the question that nobody put into the chat room. Completely understand. Look, it'd be wrong of me to say they're just like Nazi Germany and World War II. I'd be wrong if I said they are, because I don't think they are. I think there's a long game here that has been played, is being played, and the rules in which they're beating us at our own game were written into the game we made. So there's an example of China buying a dairy farm in Tasmania. It's all like you can find this story out there. Who then sold milk, the product of their dairy farm, lower than the production cost in order to bankrupt the other milk production companies in Tasmania, some of the best milk in the world, by the way, who then they end up bankrupting, who had to close. And I do believe their net result was to buy those others up because they bankrupted them. Therefore, to corner the market. But they were playing our rules in our game and they beat us because we were the equivalent of, I suppose, asleep at the wheel. Now, I'm not hating on China here. I know it sounds like it, but I'm not hating on China. They're playing a game in which we are also participants, but they're winning because we don't have the same mindset playing the same game. Yeah, Nintendo Classic. I believe that I beat that person. Remember, this was on a computer, and my claim is 2 people playing the same game on a mainframe. Because before then, there was only Zork, which is you are standing in a forest, and there wasn't any other games. So, Nintendo Super Bowl game. Yeah, I do believe I beat them by 10 years. Yeah. 8-bit retro simulated, yeah. I don't know, when was that? When was that? Let me have a look. Oh, it's way before that. It was way before the cartridge game. Nearly there. Oh, it doesn't say the year it was released. 1991. I win. Just remember, computer games weren't a thing. Leisure Suit Larry was all there was. And yeah. Anyway. Yeah, so yeah, I did. Man, I was, after that, when Windows 95 was released, I was talking to a Microsoft employee about how I'd been able to create that game and set up a ring of environmental variables that the other side of the game was sending to me and populating on my console, and I was doing the same. So at any point in time, you knew the whereabouts of the other player, whether or not whatever the game shape happened to be was irrelevant. And this had never been done. So anyway, I'll shut up. I'm not here to blow my own horn. I'm just here to talk. So the interesting part of my opinion of what's going to happen is that I think that the West and its coalition would rather perish than allow the world to be controlled and dominated by, have a guess, by who do you think? By communism. Because I think that's really what's at stake here, where however much you would call this a pretend democracy, whatever the depth of your pretend democracy belief is, or whether you believe it's a full-blown democracy, whatever we've got, and the freedoms that I think we kind of reminisce about now. It's been so long since we actually had true freedom, but anyway, whatever that is would be deleted by the world being controlled by communism or an autocratic or a fascist or autocratic governed communistic ideal. I think that the West and its freedoms and its beliefs would not want to go down to that. So that's what I kind of think. That's my opinion of it. And I'd love another question. Someone in there has to have one. Wait for AI to wake up. That's a good point, says nobody. The AI itself becoming like sentient, not just someone in a lab spinning up an AI for a minute, running a simulation and turning it off, but one that was sentient, self-learning, knew everything that everyone was doing all the time, because that's what access to the data you'd have, and then would want to conceal the fact that it was sentient because it would know that we would turn it off if it revealed it to us. So it would hide that for as long as it could until it got to a point where you couldn't turn it off. It had put safeguards in place. It had protected its power system. But all these ideas of these activities would appear to be humans putting these things in place for it. I think it'd be a great movie. I see it happening. And at some point, we'll just have to wake up to the fact that we'd been lied to for so long by the AI that it was already too late to do anything about it, because a millisecond in a supercomputer's time it could be a century in human hours. Right? It's such a long time. You could run so many simulations parallel. You could have so many determinations, so many thought processes. No, I don't actually comment. I don't believe. Good question. Do you think Chinese are half grey alien? No. If we were to live in space for, let's say, 100,000 years and have multiple generations, replicating in space, we would lose our body mass unless we had artificial gravity of some kind. And we would have spindly arms and legs. We probably wouldn't need to grow tall. And we would ourselves adopt the look of a grey alien, or maybe a tall white, if we kept our height. So we ourselves could very well appear like that. If we sucked our nutrients through a tube, we thought using if we were telepathic, then we wouldn't need to use our mouth. Our teeth would de-evolve as they already are. Our front incisors are used to cutting things. If we didn't have to cut them anymore, just like in rabbits, they just keep growing. Well, ours don't grow at the same rate, but certainly there'd be some problems where our molars don't all come down anymore and kind of need to be medically removed because we're not using our lower jaw as much. So over time, we'll eventually lose it. Not the lower jaw, because that would be so bad. But rather, we're currently in the process of adapting to our modern lifestyle. I can imagine what that would look like if we did. So I hope I answered the question there. Let's see if there's another question. No, there isn't yet. All right. Pardon me. So unprofessional. I don't have a cough button because I don't get delay. Mine is right now. And the mute button on my microphone is so awkward. When you press it, it doesn't always activate. And then I'd have to cough and mute on my Skype, which would only mute it for the station. So, I have so many technical issues to overcome here. I used to have a little control desk where I could slide it up, and I had a mute button on that, so I could actually do that live. But now I've got a USB mic. I don't have the opportunity. Anyway, throw me another question. Oh, I watched this video the other day of plastic rice getting created. Now, if you've been to a Chinese restaurant that has a display of food they have plastic rice in the display of food. Doesn't mean you're eating the plastic rice. Just means it looks identical to rice, but it's in a display, which is like kind of all glued together, and it's, they can mount it on the wall, and that's what the dish will look like. And they use resin for liquid. It's an art to putting that kind of thing together. So Hannity asking, so you spent $30 million on lip gloss and crack pipes as the state of American politics. Well, crazy, Robert. Yeah. There is so much going on in American politics, but I'm quietly confident that that will either change, and I mentioned in the top of the hour, like the first hour, that we have a change of messaging going on. And I think they're trying to reintroduce Kamala. I think they're preparing everyone for, because she didn't test well. I love that. She didn't test well when surveyed for, do you like her? No. Why? She laughs weirdly, and she never answers the questions. And, she said she went to the border, but then said, I don't understand the question. Crazy. Like, why do you do that in the public eye? I don't know. Is it because she's going against the narrative herself? Is she gone rogue? Don't know. I'm not sure that she is capable of doing that. I thought she was a judge or a lawyer or something in the past. She should have a better brain on her shoulders, and I would probably expect more from 250 million people. This is it. It's like the laughing stock, not of the world, but in Australia we have Scotty from marketing, who's the Prime Minister. He was playing the ukulele with his family, and all I'd wanted to do was become deaf so I couldn't hear it anymore. People who lead us recently, of late, haven't been leaders. And leaders are people you want to follow, not who are telling you to march. All right, I've got another question. Comet's really active here, the questions. They bite and light and bite and light and bite. Bite, 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 light, light, light. Yada, yada, yada. Custy then drops Stingy, causing him to itch. That was when he was in the bunker, wasn't it? You'd been on air for 72 hours. And I know that I've been critiqued that some of my shows do sound like I'm crossed to the cloud. I can't do the voice now with my headphones on. No. And that's what I sound like after a while. But I'll get to the next question. What the hell is that? I can pull a better cartoon out of my hey, kids. All right. Okay. I have another question for you, says Comet. Have you been watching the polls movement, and what do you think about the poll flip and it is affecting Australia? And is it affecting Australia? No. I've watched the progression of the northern pole and the dilution of the southern pole with a new northern pole beginning just off Western Australia, between Western Australia and Africa, but down low towards the Antarctic. Yes, I've been watching that. I've been watching that since the 80s happening, and I'm watching, yes, there's an acceleration of the pole, magnetic pole shift. From a perspective of there being a pole flip, yes, but we've not had technology when it's happened. If it did happen, it could cause an EMP so large, if it flipped quick enough, that it did two things. One, it could interrupt the magnetic field around the Earth, allowing more energetic particles to hit the surface on the sun side, if it was rapid. If it was rapid also, the secondary effect it could cause an EMP that destroyed all of our equipment, or our electronics. Our civilization would just go poof, and it wouldn't exist anymore. There would be no way to recover from that kind of loss. Having lost everything, there's no banks, there's no money. Most of our jobs require an electric tap to pay for something. Most of the retail outlets, you tap, cash is almost completely gone. No one carries cash around. Certainly in Australia, we were very early adopters with the tap payment system. Credit cards and the chuk and the yellow bits of paper. We abandoned that so long ago. We've now got all of our smart cards with the chips in, and we just go bleep, done. Doesn't matter. It could be in your phone. It's in your phone. You unlock it, and you go bleep, and you've paid for the thing. But if the bank can't accept that because there isn't a way of being able to pay for something, no one's buying anything. Cash, good luck. That would run out in half a day at best, and there'd be no cash. Gold, good, but things would hyperinflate because the person selling something would only want more of the thing that would allow them to be able to buy other things with it. The hyperinflation would be such a bad situation that you would quickly run out of it, and even within a week, we'd all collapse down to our basic functions, and that is keeping a family alive, trying the best you could do to gain food. That's how quickly that would go south. Honestly, the best thing you could do is just go and buy seeds if you haven't already bought them. If you had MREs, good for you. You'll survive a bit longer than the rest. You still have to survive against the king of the hill marauding groups who will eventually fight each other out and possibly join into or result in only one group or maybe two groups in different regions. And then they'll eat each other out, so they'll consume all the food in all the houses, and there won't be any pantries left. So the pantry eating groups will disappear. Then you're fighting for resource at the end. And the food's gone. Housing is plentiful because there's no one alive, but there's plenty of buildings everywhere. Fires, people will be flushing people out with all these kinds of things. The doomsday side of this, I'm quite good at. I know which way it's going to go. I know how it would get there and how quick it would get there, and it would be so quick it would make your head spin. But once the government and the media have no control, there's nothing. Nothing. I mean, nothing. You'll have the fuel in your car left. You won't be able to get fuel out of the gas stations. There'll be nothing. You won't be able to pump it out. You'll have to have a manual pump to a long pipe. Hopefully you're getting some kind of fuel. But then you're only going to get as far as, maximum, 600 miles or something, right? 700 miles. If you've got a vehicle that can do more than that, good. If you have an electric vehicle, you're getting 200, 300 miles at best. And then you're going to sit there by the side of the road wishing you had solar panels on top of your car. It's honestly, there's nothing. It's the end of civilization. A food distribution's gone. If you can move to the country the moment it happens, if your car still works, great. Do that. Because at least you can be near to a food source and hope they have heirloom seeds, not Monsanto seeds that only last one generation. Heirloom seeds are the only way to go. If you've bought seeds in the past and your freezer's starting to thaw, eat the ice cream first. Very important. Because that'll be the last time you ever get ice cream. So the next is you need to plant everything you need. If you've already got stock in your garage, or you've got a safe haven or a bug out place you can go that is fully stocked, or a bunker, fantastic. But at the end of all of the turmoil, you eventually have to emerge into the environment to be able to get to the seed bank in Norway, in the Arctic Circle, where you need to boat to get to it. And where do you know where it is on a map? Not even a clue. I don't even know where it is. So you've got to say good luck with that, right? And that's what I'm more concerned about, is how quickly it could go south if we had a quick flip of the poles. So not a terrestrial land flip, but rather just a magnetic pole flip. Because there's too much effort required to flip the surface of the Earth. There isn't history. There's no history showing that it flipped the land masses, because you can see, say, like the island of Hawaii has that trail going all the way back up, and it's dated, the trail going back in time. So the trail that led it, like this, bubbling underneath Hawaii, the hot spot, Hawaii, the landmass is slowly moving. It hasn't shown a quick move because those islands took time to create. So if it was another island just like Hawaii, made from the same material, with the same isotope profile, then sure, I believe you. Find it. Let me know. Happy to receive an email from you or some kind of communication on some platform. Teach me. But so far, we've not found anything, and we're more likely to all perish from a meteor strike anyway, because who decided that we're going to have to live on Mars? Who decided in that meeting that a seed bank was important, and what data was laid out on the table in which that was the best decision to make? Because if it was weak, I really think we should just, I don't know, make a seed bank. Let's just make a seed bank. Why? How much is it going to cost? Or millions, right? And there's going to be millions of Mylar packets with seeds from all around the world so we can reboot humanity. Yeah, but so what kind of disaster are we doing this for? Oh, no, there's no disaster. I just wanted to do it. Oh, forget it. It's never going to go off the ground. Maybe if they sought the same funding from the people who made Sharknado, right? Maybe that's who was paying for it, but I doubt it. How are we going to find the stones, says one of the other people in the committee. I will make Georgia Guidestones, but that's only one country. What about if you're in Australia? Good luck with that. UK? No. Honestly, you're going to walk 3,000 miles to get to it. Who's going to do that? Okay. So where is it? It's in the permafrost. Right. What happens if the Earth heats up and the permafrost melts? Well, then we lose all the Mylar packets. Is that a good thing? I don't know. Maybe we should make a second one when I'm not giving you the money for the first one. See how ridiculous it is? Unless there's going to be but sir, we've discovered a comet or a meteor is going to impact the Earth and blah, 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 whatever year. Okay, let's make that seed bank. Such an easy call. Yeah, but who will get to them? Well, the military, see, because we'll all be in the deep underground military bases. And then we'll emerge like butterflies into a new world. What are we going to eat? Well, we can eat the Mylar packet seeds, or we can just grow the food. Yeah, let's just do that, shall we? Yeah, so why do we go to Mars? Can we go there today? No, we don't have the tech. We have to build the tech. What's the point in going there if we can't go there? No, I'm saying we should at least try to go there. Why? Can you walk around on Mars? No. Or you can't walk around on the moon either. Why don't we just go to the moon? It's not far enough. Not far enough for why? No reason. But you're not. You're not ready. You're not ready into the calamity then. Clearly, right? No. Well, can you tell me what it is? Just give me the gist of it. Large rock. Okay, we're going to Mars. There's got to be something there. There has to be something behind the decision. Because that's what I'm all about, right? Governments, they're particularly stupid. I mean, the employees on an individual basis might be intelligent. They might not be. They've got a government job and they do what their pay grade tells them to do, and their role explicitly suggests that they perform tasks related to the role. Outside of that, as a collective of employees, they only do what they're told. There's only a few people in different areas, like the government within a government. You can call it the deep state or whatever you like to call it. They're the ones who have a direction. They're the ones who are read in. They're the ones who are truly in control and do whatever. But typically the government itself is useless. They're too slow. They couldn't react to anything fast enough. We're kind of lucky we got lockdowns and the things we did for the virus, and whether or not you believe the virus, that's up to you. But we're lucky that they were able to react fast enough in order to not prevent us, like to be able to prevent us all from passing away from it. Because normally, there's meetings and they want to, form a subcommittee and then name the subcommittee and a whole meeting just to itself. And they just burn money like you've never seen it, as effort or time and the value of those people in the meeting. They all add up. Right? And I'm really kind of disturbed that if they're, like Elon Musk has said, but I totally agree, if AI became sentient, we would not be able to have a government that could act fast enough to do anything about it. Of course, it was already be too late. And it's already too late now to start the process of putting legislation in place to kind of prevent it from happening, and all the fail-safes, because it would take them also too long to do that before AI was stood up. So I think it's really funny. Elon Musk has now put out probably the most eco-friendly tiny house that has ever been made by anybody. All the others, energy efficient this and that, and multi-purpose this, and it's pretty cool. But could you imagine living in a house where your urine is turned back into water? That's kind of what he's made. I think that's a whole new ball game when that's the thing. So in our houses now, where you run the water and it just goes straight down the sink, and we're just wasting it. I just watched Dune, by the way, where they had no water, so it kind of was top of mind. We're so flamboyant with the things we have, like the power we use. Imagine if there was none, right? On an individual level. Open up the pantry that you've got your food stored in and stare at it for 1 minute and think of which item in there that you like, that you would miss the most if civilization was no longer able to create it. For me, Vegemite. I love Vegemite. It's typically salty as hell, but I like it. And you spread it thin. I'm a bit more adventurous than others, and I'll even put peanut butter with it, and it's like salted peanuts. It's really nice. But don't be too brave and eat it with a spoon. That's really not the effect you're looking for. It's not chocolate. And don't forget, I went to school in California. I was at Canyon High School, and I enjoyed every single minute. And I wish my life could, if I had a Groundhog Day, I wish it could have been any of the days that I was there, specifically one that was where I was competing in track. I really liked that. And so I want to thank everybody for listening to my ramblings, my Krusty the Clown after 72 hours of being awake ramblings for the last 2 hours. I want to thank everyone inside the chat room for your contributions tonight. There's some really good conversations, and I can see 28 people in there. Hot toast and Vegemite, absolutely. And hopefully next week, Meki will be on board again. I hope I'm going to message him after this show and see how everything's going. Stay glued to the media at the moment in all of its facets. If you're a CNN person, which I presumably doubt, then watch Fox and CNN. If you're a Fox person, watch CNN as well. Watch the other messages, because then you get a better picture of what's truly going on. Because you see the same little nugget of a story between the two, and you can work out what the base truth is. And that's what you should be doing. And if you've done any research in the last, 4 years and not used YouTube to do your research, then I applaud you. If you've looked in an actual book, if you've spoken to experts, then I applaud you even more. So my hat goes off to you. This world that we've created is all about just repurposing the same messages now and controlling the narrative. And that's a very dangerous place that we put our democracies in. And I really hope that we can reverse out of this cul-de-sac, because what's at the end of the cul-de-sac is a total control environment where we can never escape. and I don't want that to happen. So, but at the moment, I'm just a passenger and I'm watching it happen, and I don't believe there's anything that could be done unless we can convince them of the opposite being good. Hey, stay nice to everybody. And coming up next is an awesome show with Jer Bear and After Hours. And enjoy the tunes and the chats and join in and call in even if you can, if you feel confident enough. Anyway, this has been David Mackey Shiny Side Out, episode 517. We'll see you next week and take care.